Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. 57 subscribers. I think that's an increase of 8 from my last video. I think the last one was popular just because I mentioned Dogecoin, which is unfortunate because, I mean, popular meaning it got 177 views. I'm not going to mention Dogecoin in every video just to get views. I mean, this one will probably get 8 views, and I think this one is so much more important than the Dogecoin video that it's unfortunate. But I'm not playing the game because I don't care. I don't care if only 5 people watch this video or see it or listen to it really because I don't really put much on my screen. But that's not why I make them. So if there are 8 people out there who are going to see this, I'm hoping to impart some Bitcoin wisdom because this one's I think important, and so I'll just get to it. My father is what they would call a boomer, definitely a baby boomer. He's in his mid 70s. He has been buying tax free municipal bonds as pretty much his sole investment, with the exception of maybe high dividend stocks. So, high dividend stocks and tax free municipal bonds are the only things he invests in. Those are incredibly safe investments. And my father, who for 40 years has been investing in those two things and those two things only, has bought his first Bitcoin. And that is, in my mind, huge because if you knew how, because I've been in crypto for about 4 years. So if you knew how many conversations that me and him and I have had about Bitcoin, and every time it goes the same. He goes, "It's backed by nothing. It's backed by nothing." And I say to him, "Dad, your dollars are backed by nothing." And he goes, "My dollars are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government." We've had this conversation 200 times. So he bought his first Bitcoin. When meanwhile, I was telling him to buy Bitcoin when it was 4,000. Now it's at 50,000 and he buys his first Bitcoin. Okay, so I say to him, what a huge moment this is in the history of Bitcoin. I said, you buying Bitcoin is a huge moment for Bitcoin because it shows a colossal shift. I said that you could change your mind about Bitcoin after having so many conversations where you just hate it. And his answer, I said, so you've changed, and his answer was that not that he hasn't changed. His answer was that Bitcoin has changed. And I said, Bitcoin hasn't changed. It's a computer program. It can't change. It's code. And he said, not the code, but what he could gather from talking to me and from whatever research he did on his own is that what gives Bitcoin value is its network. And the network has grown considerably over the years. And he said, and the more important the people on the network, the more secure the network is. And that security has significant value. And that network is seems to be growing exponentially. So it's a very intelligent answer. He's a smart guy, and not one who changes his mind easily. So the fact that he changed his mind about this was absolutely astonishing to me. But I think that there's also, look, one person who hates Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin is meaningless. But I think you're going, or we are now seeing this shift across the board. What I thought was going to have to happen was that the boomer generation would resist Bitcoin. They'd say it's backed by nothing, it's backed by nothing, right up until they're dead. Then their wealth would transfer to their children who are more open to Bitcoin, who's there, and when those people live their lives and die, their wealth would be transferred to their children who are even more open to Bitcoin. Because that's what happens with technology. I think that my son's kids will probably have some kind of computer chip implant put in them by when they're born, and we would never allow that. But because we're the generation that resists the technology, and then the next generation accepts it, and that's what happens. That's a separate issue, but my point is that it's skipping. I thought this process would take 20 to 30 years as people who don't believe in Bitcoin die off and people who do believe in Bitcoin would take over their wealth and then buy Bitcoin with it. But now the boomers are buying Bitcoin. And I think the main reason is, well, two things. If you look at what my father said was his reason for not believing in Bitcoin and believing in dollars, He said the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, I think there's been a lot of loss in the belief in the full faith and credit of the United States government. I think we're losing faith in our institutions, and I think that's happening just across the country. And you can see it everywhere. Standard of living is dropping greatly. Tent cities everywhere. 20 years ago, if you told me there was going to be tent cities all over Los Angeles, and this isn't some third world country. What is going on here, and why are we considering that acceptable? But so yeah, one of the things is that the full faith and credit of the United States government may, I think that's beginning to waver. The other thing is what older people want is yield. They want interest. They want a return on their money. They worked their whole lives. They have a big pile of cash, and they need it to earn interest so they can live off that interest. That is how retirement works. And you can't get any interest in the bank. You can't get any interest in bonds, in tax-free municipals anymore. If you want a pretty safe bond, you're looking at 2%. You can't live on that. Inflation is very much on the rise no matter what they tell you on TV. If you're believing that inflation is at 2%, turn off your television and just look around. Open your eyes, all right? Inflation is here. So these boomers are looking at inflation. They can't get any interest on their money, and they're watching Bitcoin go to the moon. But more importantly, and I told you I'm going to review these platforms, and I still intend to. There are platforms like BlockFi and Celsius and Crypto.com where you can earn significant yield, even if you don't believe in Bitcoin and you just want to put your money into a stable coin, which is the same as having it in dollars, and keep that on BlockFi, you'll earn 8% interest. You tell a boomer 8% interest and they go nuts. Like, you 8% interest? You're kidding me? It can't be real. Is it some weird company? No, it's a United States company. No, it's insured. I mean, and they can't believe it. And they don't believe it. But they're being forced to be open to it because there's nowhere else to go. But the boomers are the people who really have the money right now. That's just generational. That's just the way money works. And the fact that they're open to buying Bitcoin and they're starting to buy Bitcoin is why I do not, and I'm going to make another video called Bitcoin's Not in a Bubble, because it's not, is why I believe that Bitcoin is not in a bubble. This is a natural progression for Bitcoin. Money is flowing into it because it's the only place for money to go. It's weird being right. It's weird believing in something for years and then watching it actually turn out the exact way you thought it would. So it's nerve-wracking. And the same thing back to these boomers, they're afraid to go into the stock market because that is a bubble. These stocks are valued by their price to earnings ratios, and that's all been thrown out the window, and people are just buying stocks to buy them because they have nowhere else to put their money. And Bitcoin, the $54,000 level for Bitcoin is tremendous because it gives Bitcoin a $1 trillion valuation. And there are certain entities like certain pension funds and other investment groups that are simply not allowed to invest in anything that's too risky. And the way they define something that's risky and new and hip and now and something that they don't want to be in is they will not allow them to invest in anything with under $1 trillion market cap. So now Bitcoin is on the table for a lot of huge investors that it wasn't on the table for before. So if it can hold the 54,000 level for any significant length of time, which I think a month, if it can hold 54,000 for a month, I believe it'll leap to 80,000. That's just my opinion. It's not financial advice. I am still buying Bitcoin even at this price. I bought some Bitcoin today. Not a lot. I buy little bits. I don't believe in dollar cost averaging. I don't buy. I'll talk about that at some later date. I know that everybody thinks dollar cost averaging is just the bomb, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, so the boomers buying Bitcoin is enormous. I think that's what's happening. I also think that corporations are gobbling up Bitcoin. People are losing faith in the dollar. And what's unfortunate is I'm not saying, if Bitcoin were a bubble, I'm not seeing signs of any kind of mania. I'm not seeing regular everyday people who are buying Bitcoin. The same number of people I knew who were into Bitcoin in my everyday life are pretty much the same number now, with the exception of my father, obviously. But I do see that it's growing among corporations. That corporations are buying up Bitcoin. And, corporations don't announce that they're buying Bitcoin for the most part. They announce that they bought Bitcoin. And that's why I think you're not able to. I know so many people who are saying, I'm waiting for a dip. On a dip, I'm going to buy some. It just seems so high right now. I don't want to buy it at an all-time high. I'm going to buy on a dip. And then the dip never comes because they have all these computer programs buying up every slightest dip in the price is being bought up by these corporations. That's my own theory. But yeah, I'm trying to stay on topic. But the boomers buying Bitcoin is enormous. It's here. It's very good news for Bitcoin. My father bought his first Bitcoin. And you know what a big selling point is for any of you out there who talk to your parents about Bitcoin and they won't change their mind? One thing I said to him after he bought his first Bitcoin is, you're in a very elite club right now. And he goes, yeah, what? Because I own Bitcoin? And I go, no, because you own a whole Bitcoin. I said, there are 48 million millionaires in the world. And do you know what that means? It means that if every millionaire in the world wanted to own one Bitcoin, they can't. Because there's only 21 million Bitcoin and there's 48 million millionaires. And that's, for some reason, that sticks with them. I don't know why. And so if any of you are trying to convince your parents to open themselves up to Bitcoin or anything like that, give it a try. So yeah, that's the video for today. I'm sure it'll get about 8 views because it's not about Dogecoin, but I don't care. But hopefully somebody got something out of this. Subscribe and like. I mean, all that does is let me know that you like the video because I don't really care to make money off these things. But it does let me know that there was someone out there who enjoyed the content. So yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well. And this is Crypto Stew signing off.